Good afternoon. My name is Mike Michelle, Queens Commissioner, Board of Elections. I'd like the commissioner starting from my left.
Ron Castorino, Richmond County Republican. Simon Shalhoub, Kings Republican.
Frederick Humane, Manhattan Republican.
Bianca Perez, Bronx Dem.
Alan Slocum, Manhattan Dem. John Flato, Kings Dem.
Marie Costello, Richmond Dem.
Jose Roger, Queen Democrat.
Michael Ryan, Executive Director.
Mike Ordino, Bronx Republican.
Please stand.
John Sandow, Deputy Executive Director. Pamela Perkins, Administrative Manager. Nina M. Crispino, Director of Personnel.
Kenneth Moulton, Council 2 Commissioner.
Stephen Danberg, Council.
Rafael Swino, Deputy General Counsel.
Everybody has the agenda. Anybody want to add something to the agenda? In the minutes for January 6, 2015. Has everybody read them?
Are these the amended minutes? The change, right?
One change, yes.
That's it.
Yes, the change is made.
I move we adopt the minutes from January 6th.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Michael Ryan?
Yes, I'll be right with you guys. Mike, you showing back on this?
No,
Yes, sorry to keep you waiting. There's just some documents that weren't included in the packets that need to be brought down. In any event, we can move along. I guess we could go ahead. Ms. Sandow, do you have the list of the commissioners that responded to the committee assignments? You don't have that either?
Well, there was two that I
There's
received.
two.
Commissioner
Okay.
Perez and Commissioner Flatel. Christian, I thought.
Commissioner Michelle and I contacted,
right. Christian.
Right. We had,
I had two. She was putting together the full list.
right.
Did you?
Yeah, let's just wait on that.
Okay.
Oh, it's on the- All right, we can go to, no wonder why I can't find.
Black.
He's not even here to take praise now, Mr. Flax. The back of the agenda has we can move on to item 2C. There was a lawsuit filed against the Board of Elections by a former employee, Maria Lynch, who was the deputy chief clerk in the Queens County office. There was a trial that was conducted and concluded last week in the United States Court for the Eastern District. I believe it was before Judge Block. And there was a verdict in favor of the Board of Elections dismissing the plaintiff's complaint in its entirety, and there was no recovery from the plaintiff. And essentially, the argument was attempted to be advanced by Ms. Lynch that she was not a policymaker, and therefore her First Amendment rights were being infringed, as well as other claims. And the jury did not side with Ms. Lynch, and rather sided with the rightful dismissal by the Board of Elections. Actually, under those circumstances, it's the full board, since she is a borough manager. So clearly, deputy chiefs, clerks, and chief clerks are considered to be policymakers. They cannot cloak themselves in the protections of the First Amendment, and they are at-will employees. And upon appropriate vote, motion ultimately, and vote by the full Board of Commissioners, can be dismissed under those circumstances as at-will employees. So that was just result for the Board of Elections, I believe. And Mr. Savino, if you could please just state for the record the two attorneys who were handling this matter for the law department.
Chris Boria was one of the attorneys, and I actually forgot the other gentleman's name, but I know I'm gonna get it.
Matthew
Mao, I think it was?
Mao?
Yeah, Mao.
Well, it had been reported back to me by legal counsel as well as witnesses, including both Commissioners Michelle and Arajo, who testified at the trial, that these two lawyers should be commended for their work on this case. They represented the Board of Elections and the City of New York very well, and it led to the proper result as far as we're concerned. And we will be preparing
Correct.
a letter for the signature of both Commissioner Michelle and Commissioner Perez as President and Secretary to forward to Zachary Carter Corporation Counsel, commending these two attorneys for their work under the circumstances. So that letter will be prepared and signed by both the President and Secretary on behalf of the agency.
We should put a letter in the president's file, because it was his testimony that won the case.
Does it have to have a gold star as well? Or would you prefer a smiley face? Which one's better? Okay.
This is already said.
Right.
And here is the policy and procedure.
Okay. Right.
No, you have to look for a second. Yeah, let's take it to that.
Okay, in terms of item 2A, the I'll pass these around, sorry, please. The current committees, as constituted by prior action of the board, include the Executive Committee, the Budget and Finance Committee, Communications, Voter Registration and Outreach being all one committee, Management Information Systems, in other words, computers, Legislative Affairs. It has been previously agreed to change the name of Investigations to Personnel, and the former Policy and Procedures Committee was previously renamed Ballot Layout Committee. And assuming that remains all set and that's the way it's going to move forward, we then need to establish the members of the committees moving forward. As again by previous action of the
Sorry,
committee.
which committee is set, ballot layout?
Well, all of those, that would
Well, the
be,
reason for ballot layout, we took the most complicated ballot, which is Queens, and we put.
we didn't get to who's on it yet, we're just talking about.
They're already on
Right.
it, that's, I'm
Right.
just trying to explain to him why we said it was set, why there's 4 there. Last year, when we substituted the ballot layout committee, we put that in instead of policy and procedure. Both Queens commissioners really were the ones that brought that up and really said we needed this committee. They have the most complicated ballot. So they were on the committee, and we had 2 Staten Island commissioners who really have the least complicated, and we figured having those 4 together is an even balance when decisions need to be made. I mean, basically it comes before the full board, but they're taking a first look at the ballot before it gets to the full board of commissioners.
Is there a limit on how many commissioners may serve on
I-
a committee? 4 is the max?
The current system that we have is there's 4 on there because we have to have equal representation on each committee. But any commissioner can come to any meeting. But you have to have 4 right now unless we change those rules.
Right. Based on the prior,
Gets to vote on the final.
You can't vote at the committee level, but you get to vote at the final.
right. So based on the way it's currently set up, so we'll take a step back. Each committee would consist of 4 committee members, a Democrat and a Republican, 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans, I should say. I apologize. All of the committee meetings that require, are under the same requirement as every other meeting that we have. So for example, when we had the ballot layout committee meetings last year, they were done in public, and they were recorded and posted to the web. I will say that they were not remarkably well attended, but that's not the point. The point is the public can attend if they wish to attend. So it stands to reason then that if a member of the public is welcome at a meeting, certainly any other commissioner who is not on that committee is also welcome at the meeting. The question then becomes whether or not the vote that is taken, the official action of the committee will be then limited to the vote of the 4, no more than the 4 members of that committee. However, committees make recommendations. They don't take action with finality. So whatever happens after the committee votes still comes back before this body under these circumstances, and then it's put forward for a public vote. So last year we had some significant issues with ballot layout. I believe that they have been resolved to some extent moving forward, but they're always going to be an issue. But the larger question of the 3 languages, no more than 3 languages on each ballot, that seems to be resolved with some level of finality. And we'll move forward then. But now we got the executive committee consists of Commissioner Michelle as president and Commissioner Perez as secretary. So there is nothing further to discuss with the executive committee.
Before you go on, can I ask a question?
Sure.
How will the members of the public be aware that the ballot layout committee is meeting?
Gets posted.
It gets posted to the web, the same way that the same exact procedure that we use for letting the public know that we're having a meeting on on Tuesdays when we meet, is the same way that we'll do it, so it'll be on the web. Now, sometimes, I remember in at least one particular case last year with the ballot layout, the decision for the first ballot layout committee was made at the public meeting here. So essentially, the public got their notice, but even though the public got notice, we still posted it to the web like we do every other way. So, and then, of course, we now have the eye in the sky that further reports what we did by posting those meetings on the web as well.
So if there's a problem with the ballot, they should be here and they should make note that there is a problem if they don't like the way it's laid out. Is that correct? Because the last time the Brennan sent a complaint after the fact, and I want to make sure that they're aware of it before the fact?
Right, that's correct. I raised that point as well, Commissioner Shulkin. I share your concern in that regard. Everything that we do with respect to issues of consequence dealing with the public is in compliance with the open meetings rules.
And we had what was it? The young man that was there.
Alex Kamara.
Alex Kamara now works.
President of both
Right.
meetings.
He was at Citizens Union
Right, they were there.
before. He was present at the meetings. Matter of fact, I don't believe that I'm telling tales out of school. When he approached me after one of the meetings, he said he could not believe the complexity of those decisions and all the different things that we have to consider, both statutorily, practically, et cetera, to making an appropriate decision on ballot. So the ballot layout committee is one committee. What we need to do here today, though, is staff all of the committees And based on the information that we received back from various commissioners, we didn't receive response from everyone. I will say that, at least as far as executive management is concerned, understanding that it's still going to be a vote of the commissioners, and then ultimately the president and secretary have to make the appointments. The executive committee doesn't change. It's the president and the secretary, right? The ballot layout committee presently consists of Commissioner Arajo, Commissioner Michelle, Commissioner Guastella, and Commissioner Castorina as essentially carryovers from their positions last year, and I think Ms. Sandow already explained why that turned out to be the case. Now, we need to then staff up. Right.
Yeah,
I
he
got it.
responded.
Right, I'm gonna.
Responded, right, you responded.
Right, so right now, as it stands, if we can go on that list from top to bottom, we have Budget and Finance, Commissioner Humane.
And so you need another,
We would need at least one more Democrat. Now,
I asked to go.
right, yes.
And I take my name off.
Okay, so we don't need, they don't have to have four.
No.
Me too.
But it could be as little as two, but it can't be less than two. I mean, you know,
no.
I don't want to leave Commissioner Humane sitting in the room by himself.
I still get into an argument all that money, but the problem is he still gets in an argument by himself.
All right, so that'd be Commissioner Flateau. All right, so that one should be then, that should be done as well.
Right, Commissioner Humane, Commissioner Flateau, Budget and Finance.
Okay. And the other thing is typically in the past, commissioners have been limited to two committees each, not to serve on all the committees.
Okay.
So we got communications, voter registration, and outreach. I believe that Commissioner Rendino and Commissioner Flateau, that was one of the other, but you did express concern, interest in more than.
Actually, I threw in the kitchen sink.
Right. So is that?
There's another rule. Generally, historically, it's been 2 committees per commission.
Right.
Two
Well,
commissioners per committee, no less than 2, no more than 4.
And then typically, no more than 2 committees per commission.
Go on more than.
Yeah, in
In
general,
in general,
commissioners serve on 2 standing committees.
Right.
Okay, then
In general.
I would like to stay with voter registration.
Okay.
That would be my second.
And so then that would be Commissioner Flateau, Commissioner Rendino, anyone else?
I'll carry over.
Okay, Commissioner Shimon's on that as well. And can we get another them to serve on that? Okay, so we got Commissioner Shaw.
There's no volunteering, there's working.
All right, and then we got MIS. Now, we had Commissioner Flateau had volunteered for that. Is there any other Dem that would serve on that committee? We have Commissioner Shimon, but Commissioner Shimon is good to stay, and anyone else? Commissioner Flateau, that puts him up to 3 committees.
Okay,
I don't think it's an amendment. And then Legislative Affairs, we got Commissioner Perez and?
I'd like to be on
I actually did send in this time, and I don't know why it wasn't listed.
Well, yeah, none of that, this is just the one from last year.
No, I responded, I don't know why
Right,
nobody got it, so
right.
I responded for the legislative affairs and.
No,
he's saying that this is from last year.
Right, okay, I'm sorry. So it would be then Guastella? Yeah, then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 5.
so,
you can take my name off.
Guastella's out.
so who do we have on here?
Commissioner Rendino. Commissioner Humane is staying on or going on?
Okay. Yeah, okay, if you want me to buy.
You can stay on, I'll go off, Castorina can go on.
Yeah.
So put Castorina in the main from the Republicans, Shulkin and Perez from the Dems.
Excellent. All right, and I'll reread these once we're done,
Perez
all right?
and.
And then personnel, we have Commissioner Rajo, Commissioner Michelle. And who else?
Right, we need a second then.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right, so good. Then that's all done. All right, so just so that everybody knows, and we'll do it all with clarity, the executive committee consists of the president and secretary, being Commissioner Michelle and Commissioner Perez. Budget and finance consists of Commissioner Humane and Commissioner Flatsky. Communications, voter registration, and outreach consists of Commissioner Shimon, Commissioner Randino, Commissioner Flateau, and Commissioner Schultz. MIS consists of Commissioner Shimon and Commissioner Flateau. Legislative Affairs consists of Commissioner Castorina, Commissioner Humane, Commissioner Shulkin, and Commissioner Perez. Personnel consists of Commissioner Arajo, Commissioner Michelle, Commissioner Randino, and Commissioner Perez. And the ballot layout committee is Commissioner Arajo, Commissioner Michelle, Commissioner Guastella, and Commissioner Castor.
Do we have to make a motion to
We have a
adopt?
yes, I'm sorry, make a motion.
Only if you want it to be effective.
I'll make that motion.
I second.
All in
Second,
favor?
all in favor?
Aye.
Mike,
B.
B, independent nomination petition.
Yes, the changes were circulated to the commissioners, the proposed changes. There's limited changes. Certainly, Mr. Savino. Drawing a blank, I almost called you Mr. Richmond. I apologize.
Ooh, alter ego.
Came close.
Legal alter
Close.
ego.
Can you walk the commissioners through the proposed changes?
Do you have a copy of the?
Of the,
I didn't bring one.
when I get it, yeah,
Can-
but just what you prepared, otherwise.
Can we have copies before the meeting is over? Some of us couldn't open those files.
So we still have the files
Certainly.
open?
Yeah.
I thought that was resolved.
All
right.
I know
Yes.
I had trouble to put it on my iPhone, but now I had to take it off because it screwed up everything, so I just got my, yeah?
May I begin?
Yeah.
All right. The rules that are being circulated are for, obviously, 2015, for any special elections. That would cover municipal, local, state, or federal special elections. They're basically the same thing in substance from previous years with three changes. One is, it references on all cover sheets as required by law, it must indicate that it has a number of sufficient signatures or in excess of the number of sufficient signatures required pursuant to the election law. It also adds the language and the New York City Charter, because in local elections, the New York City Charter actually decreases the amount of signatures required as compared to the election law. So that was just one addition we thought was important to add. The other change.
Should we hold our questions to the end?
I think that,
That's an important new point. Who has the responsibility to check for the sufficiency of signatures?
Well, if there's objection, I mean, there's a general weight test, if you want to call it that CRU will perform, so to speak, without going too much detail. But
Meaning literally?
Yes.
No, well, it's,
It's the
no,
pit- it's the-
if you need
it's the-
1,000 signatures and you submit 5 pages with 1 signature on each,
That's the
that
weight
floats the weight test. But in
And it's
general,
the Board of Elections who, we are
yes.
scrutinizing that?
we do not count.
No.
As a general rule, whatever is filed, we accept. And we accept it as being good, so we don't count. The only thing that we do is because we've had people who have filed petitions this thick with photocopy pages and no real signatures, that while it's heavy, would not pass the weight test because it's It's a phony petition. So there's a concept of de minimis, which means that if it, without any independent real review, other than sort of going like this, that you couldn't possibly have enough signatures in there. In the example of 1,000 signatures in 5 pages with 1 signature. Could be 10 pages with 1 signature, but that's what we call the weight test. And it's gotta be so sufficiently insufficient that anybody just looking at it could tell. And that's essentially the standard that we use. Anything else, we don't look at unless it's objected to.
And so that triggers the whole objection process, which triggers the hearings before the commissioners, and then ultimately any questions of law are typically left to the courts.
The second change is with respect to notices of non-compliance, also known as like defect notices. If there's a problem with a petition, the rules traditionally said that notice would be sent to the contact person, or if no contact person is selected, then the actual deficiency notice would be sent to the candidate. Now, while it really won't come into play in the special elections, we did make a universal change to all the rules, and we'll get the additional rules, later out later in the year. But we changed it to indicate if there is no contact person, it can also be sent to the first person on the committee to fill vacancies. The reason we made that change was in the cases where there was a petition for party positions and there was a purported defect, there could be hundreds of names for the party positions in the attached schedule, which required the mailing of hundreds of letters each night, perhaps, at a cost of $20 or so apiece. We thought it was much better to change the rules and give everybody fair notice of that well in advance, that we can instead, again, of sending it to each candidate, send 1 letter instead of a lot of letters that would have otherwise been required to either the contact person, if there's no contact person, the first person on the committee to fill vacancies. And then the last change is even less significant and not really substantive, but it just says that in the past, copies of the election law and the state board's rules and regs were available for purchase at the front counter. That's not a service we offer anymore. The rules now direct them to the State Board of Elections website, where they can review and download copies of those materials. And there was also a correction made to the State Board's website since they changed the page address for that PDF.
And we're including samples of the cover sheet and everything in our packet?
It's, all the samples are provided for by the State Board.
So we're taking them out of our packets?
I don't believe they're in the packets. I think there's just a reference to the.
No, didn't we used to have
We used to
copies?
have them.
And there was a
in the
vote,
back?
I think.
So we're taking them out?
I would have to double check that. Mine saying that was a vote or something that we did a while ago and just referenced the state boards.
No, I don't think so. I think we always left it in.
Well, we left it in, and we would always tell everyone if they picked it
Look
up,
at the
you
book,
just flip it,
yeah.
you look
Look
at
at
the
the
correct
right.
page is there.
Well, we haven't made any changes with respect to that. The only
Some
change
people
is that-
remember they made a copy of that page and they submitted it.
Right.
So those are the only changes, if there's any questions.
So going forward, we will keep those same materials
I would,
as
I would
promulgated by
support
our
that.
board.
I think we
there's
should.
some clarity.
I think we should. And if we took it out, I think we should put it back. I think that's the minimum that we should require, and it also makes life easier for the potential candidates, and it makes life easier for the Board of Elections. So it's worth, notwithstanding Mr. Flax, it's worth having the extra pages in the book, I suspect. At least I think so.
So we have to make a motion.
So move.
Do you want to?
Yeah, well,
we
yeah,
have to
but
make
we
a-
have to move the whole thing. I
You
just,
wanna add that
I just
part?
I have a question. What about the committee for, I guess, to receive notices for the write-ins?
Well, that would always be, there is no candidate in that case.
Right.
So those rules will always dictate that it goes to the committee to receive notices.
But if we changed it, I just wanted to make sure that that we have that as a possible alternative too. That is, the requirement is that you need to have a committee for notices if you want to do a write-in. And that's the person that would normally get the notice.
Right, that rule, although we haven't published those yet, will remain unchanged. It did have the same problem with having to send out hundreds of letters to hundreds of candidates in that case.
And you wanna make a
Okay,
motion?
so I move that we adopt the changed rules for independent nominating rules, and we confirm that we want to have the copies of the miscellaneous documents included if by some reason they fell out somewhere along the line.
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? Carries. Is there anything else?
That's it.
Yes. Okay, so we'll go into executive session?
Yes.
Anything further?
Litigation. Second.
Yes, okay, we're going into executive session. If you're not here when we come out, the next meeting will be February 3rd at 1:30. Thank you.
Coming in?
If you want.
Fred, you look so sad. Who did you fire?
Pardon me?
You look sad. Who did you fire? I'll give you this.
Yes, following actions were taken in executive session. Brooklyn Clerk Luann Kugler was granted 70 hours of discretionary time effective 1/19/2015 pursuant to the rules applicable to employees of in excess of 10 years employment. That was voted unanimously by the commissioners. The other motion that was also a unanimous vote of the commissioners was there's an issue presently pending before the Office of Labor Relations with respect to a collective bargaining matter with respect to time and leave of employees. There's been an agreement reached on that, and the contract ultimately will be a published public document, and the commissioners have granted unto executive management discretion to settle the matter in accordance with the terms and conditions that will be ultimately set forth by the Office of Labor Relations and in agreement with the Communication Workers of America Local 10.
Make a motion in the meeting?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.